Genkidamatsuri happened, and I know everyone is busy arguing about Super returning, Beerus arc remakes, Moro, Daima, all that stuff. But something else slipped through that event that people are not taking seriously enough in my opinion. They showed a teaser for a brand new Dragon Ball game, barely explained anything, didn't name it, didn't give context, and just left us with vibes, mystery, and a character that was literally drawn by Akira Toriyama himself, which already makes this whole thing way more important than people think. The moment they mentioned that this game is set in age 1000, my brain immediately went, wait a second, because the entire Dragon Ball franchise, from OG to Z to Super to Xenoverse, lives around the 700s and 800s timeline, and Xenoverse 2 itself is age 852. So jumping straight to age 1000 is not random at all. That's a massive leap into the future, and it has to mean something. At first I genuinely thought, okay, maybe this is Dragon Ball Online 2, because DBO does take place far into the future, but the more I rewatched the teaser, the more that idea completely fell apart. This does not feel like Dragon Ball Online in any way. The technology shown is straight up Capsule Corporation tech that looks almost identical to how our custom characters operate in Xenoverse 2. From the way the character is transported to the way the interface feels. And then this new mysterious guy, who the fandom has already named John, and I'm sorry but that name is staying, gets taken into a training room where he starts performing moves that don't look random at all. These are very familiar, very Xenoverse-coded movements, the way he attacks, the way he charges ki, the camera angles, the pacing, it all screams Xenoverse rather than Fighter Z, Kakarot, or anything else. Then we see a silhouette that looks like Goku, but also doesn't fully look like Goku. And yeah, I'll get back to that because that's important. But before that, we need to talk about the transformation, because this is where it really starts clicking. John turns Super Saiyan, and the hair is not just yellow, it's sharper, more dynamic, like it's actually reacting to the form. And instantly I thought about one of the biggest complaints Xenoverse fans have had since day one, which is hairstyles not changing with transformations. This looks like a next-gen solution to that problem, especially when you realize this is clearly built on upgraded Xenoverse tech rather than a completely new engine. The cutscenes only make this even more obvious because they're not in-engine gameplay scenes like Xenoverse 2, but they're also not fully cinematic in the way Kakarot does things. They use the exact same rendering style Xenoverse has always used, just polished, cleaner, and more expressive. And then comes the detail that fully sold me on this being Xenoverse 3, which is John's outfit. On his clothes, you can clearly see something that looks like GS7. And if you know Xenoverse lore, you know this is huge, because Xenoverse 2 takes place in age 852, which is internally referred to as GS3. So if you follow that logic, age 1000 would line up perfectly with GS7. Meaning this isn't just the future, this is the future of Xenoverse specifically. And this is where the timing becomes way too perfect to ignore, because let's talk about what Xenoverse 2 is literally doing right now. The latest DLC storyline is called the Future Saga. Not randomly future-themed content, not a side story, an entire saga built around the future, timeline consequences, and what happens when history keeps getting messed with. Bandai Namco did not choose that name by accident, and when you put that next to a brand new mystery game set in age 1000, it starts to feel less like coincidence and more like setup. Xenoverse has always been about protecting history, but the logical next step after fixing the past over and over again is asking what happens to the future. And age 1000 is so far ahead that it represents the ultimate outcome of all those timeline corrections we've been doing since Xenoverse 1. It honestly feels like Xenoverse 2's Future Saga is doing the heavy lifting narratively so Xenoverse 3 can start clean. They're closing loops, resolving timeline damage, and possibly even preparing the universe for a soft reset, which would explain why a new protagonist exists at all. If everything was fine, we wouldn't need John. If history was stable, we wouldn't need a new savior in age 1000. That's why this future setting makes so much sense. Because Xenoverse 3 wouldn't be about fixing old mistakes anymore. It would be about protecting a future that only exists because of everything we did in Xenoverse 2. One thing I don't see enough people talking about is how deliberate Bandai Namco has been with Xenoverse as a series lately. Xenoverse 2 is a 7-year-old game, and it's still getting major story DLC. Not just characters or moves, but full narrative arcs with cutscenes and themes. That usually only happens when a company is buying time, because the next big entry is already being worked on. We saw the same pattern between Xenoverse 1 and Xenoverse 2, where updates kept coming until the sequel suddenly made everything make sense in hindsight. And when you look at the Future Saga specifically, the tone is noticeably different from older Xenoverse stories. It's not just fix the timeline and move on. The dialogue keeps hinting that the timeline itself is breaking under the weight of constant interference. That's important, because Xenoverse is built entirely around intervention, and if the story starts questioning that concept, the natural escalation is jumping far into the future to show the result of all those fixes. That's why Age 1000 matters so much. This isn't just the future, it's the endpoint. It's the world shaped by every timeline correction, every few experiment, every mistake stacked on top of each other. Setting Xenoverse 3 there would let Bandai move forward, without rebooting anything. They don't erase Xenoverse 1 or 2, they show what those events led to, which is way more satisfying. This also explains why we're getting a new protagonist. Age 1000 is so far removed that our current CAC wouldn't make sense anymore. John isn't replacing anyone, he's inheriting a legacy. He's a warrior born into a world where Goku and Vegeta are legends, not active players, and that shift alone makes the story feel fresh. And if that somehow still wasn't enough, look at the hair color pattern across the Xenoverse series. Xenoverse 1's main character had red hair because Super Saiyan God was the newest form at the time. Xenoverse 2's protagonist had blue hair because Super Saiyan Blue was the peak back then. And now John shows up with white hair and Ultra Instinct style eyes, which lines up perfectly with where Dragon Ball currently is power-wise. There is no other Dragon Ball game series that has followed this transformation progression this consistently, and that's why I was actually losing my mind when my community poll was like, nah bro, this is Dragon Ball Online 2, because at that point, I felt like I had already cracked the code. Now let's talk about Goku, because yes, he shows up in the teaser, and yes, that raises a huge question, which is, shouldn't Goku be dead by Age 1000? And that's exactly why I don't think this is normal Goku. We already know Akira Toriyama himself was involved in this project, so the Goku we're seeing could be Toriyama's own modern take on Xenogoku, a cleaner, more grounded version that exists outside the normal timeline without going full hero's insanity, and this would actually be the perfect bridge between Xenoverse 2 and Xenoverse 3. My theory is that in the final Xenoverse 2 DLC, Fu messes up so badly that the entire Xenoverse timeline gets soft rebooted, history restructures itself, and that's how we end up in Age 1000. With John becoming the new protector, the new custom character, the savior of Dragon Ball society, John 1000, my beloved goat. And honestly, the memes alone make this whole thing worth it. Because why is John throwing hands with Gojo? Why is the Omni King scared of him? Why is Vegeta yelling, keep it 1000? Why is Moro kneeling like he's witnessing a god? This fandom is completely unhinged, and I love it. Dragon Ball genuinely hasn't felt this fun in years. We're theorizing again, we're laughing again, and it finally feels like the franchise is alive in that chaotic way that made us all fall in love with it in the first place. Quick shout out to Kakarot-san from my last video, who said they hope the Super Remake explains Daima properly. I get that completely, I just don't think they will, but hey, I'd love to be wrong. And yeah, that's about it. This is just a theory, a game theory, thanks MatPat. Drop keep it 1000 John Dragon Ball in the comments for the memes, like the video, sub up, and until next time, see ya.